Have you ever wanted to print something and weren't sure which slicer to use? Well, sometimes you just gotta try it. And it's Filament Friday, so let's print something and find out. I've been wanting to print my own chess set, and I like these ones with the spiral base because you don't need any supports. And this chess set looked really good. I liked the pieces, and the king had a cross on top that was removable, so you could actually make your own symbol and plug it in there for a custom piece. So I decided to print one of these for Filament Friday, but I wanted to try different slicers to see which one would give me the best results. So I chose the knight because this horse head looked like that would be very difficult to print. So that's the part I chose to test the different slicers with. Now if you're new to 3D printing, a slicer is just software that takes the object and cuts it into layers so the 3D printer can build it as it extrudes plastic. And there's several different slicers available, so I'm going to test some of the more popular ones. Now I wanted to see up close how good these prints were, so I used my Andostar USB Microscope. I use this a lot for looking at electronics on boards for solder joints and surface mount parts. And it works pretty good for looking at close-ups of 3D printed parts. And because it's connected through USB, I can use a camera app to capture the pictures. So I can use it here in the video, I can use it in my articles or books. It's handy to have around. And it was under $100. I'll put a link to one in the description below. So I loaded the knight into my Fabrikator software, and then I launched the first slicer I was going to try, which was called Slicer. That's the name. And so it produced the G-code that I loaded onto the SD card, loaded into my Fabrikator Mini, and then I printed it. And here's a close-up of the head. Now this was printed at 0.2 layer height and a 20% fill. And you can see there's some lines, some flaws in the head. And then when you get to the base, you can see these little nerds all along the spirals. So this wasn't great. I wasn't super happy with this. So next, I opened up Simplify 3D. Now this is not a free software. This is like a $150 software that has a built-in slicer. And a lot of people recommend it. A lot of people like it. I haven't had a lot of luck with it, but for this job, I figured I'd give it a try. So I did the same thing, a 0.2 layer height at a 20% fill, and I let Simplify 3D slice it, saved it to the SD card, and printed it out. Now the head looked a lot better. It was smoother. It had a few gaps in it, but overall it looked a lot better than Slicer. But then when I went down to the base, oh my god, it was horrible. The spirals left gaps underneath the bottom of where the spiral started. I don't know why it did this. And this wasn't a bad file. I had run this through NetFab to fix it. It's an external software. You can fix a file just to make sure there's no bad information. And so this was really strange. Now I don't have the latest version of Simplify 3D. I've only got 2.2.2 and I can't upgrade it because this was a gift to my channel, so I don't have the registration and everything to upgrade it. So I've actually got Angus at Maker's Muse, who's another YouTuber. He's actually gonna reslice it for me with the latest, and we'll see how that turns out. So then I went back to Fabrikator, and this time I chose the Cura engine for the slicer. I've had some good luck with this, and I've also had some bad luck with it. So I didn't know how this was going to turn out. But I did the same thing, 0.2 layer height, 20% fill, and then I sent it to the SD card and printed it on the Fabrikator Mini. And the results seem better. The head was really good, although there still are a few little flaws. But the base looked really good. I didn't have hardly any of those nerds on the spirals. It looked a lot better. So this looked promising. So if the 0.2 printed that good, I thought a 0.1 layer height might print even better. So I went back to Fabrikator and I sliced with Cura again, only this time I set it to a 0.1 layer height and 20% fill. And the result was as expected. The head was incredibly smooth, looked great in detail, and I was really happy with that. But then the base. The base had a bunch of nerds again. I don't get this, but I know there's other settings I can do in the slicer. Your retraction, your flow rate, and that's probably why this didn't come out better. But, you know, I could play with this thing for hours. I just can't believe that the same settings for 0.2 versus 0.1 made this big a difference. But 0.1 wasn't better than 0.2. Now I ended up using each slicer and printed a 0.2 and a 0.1. And Simplify 3D couldn't even print 0.1, those holes underneath the spirals. It collapsed, so I stopped the print. So it turned out 0.2 Cura was the best. So sometimes the filament can affect it, so I had some red filament from my DaVinci printer, and I used that to print using the XYZ slicer, which is the software for DaVinci. That came out terrible, but the Simplify had the same gaps, and slicer actually looked pretty good. I ended up by mistake printing Cura with the 0.1, so I needed to go back and print that with 0.2 because that had the nerds again. So here's a time lapse of the Cura 0.2 with the red ABS plastic. And you can tell just by watching it, the nerds aren't there on the spiral. I could tell right away that this was printing really good. In fact, I think it printed better than the orange. And let me show you a close-up of this guy. The head looks really smooth, although I kind of overexposed it a little bit, but it looks really smooth, and the base, no nerds. So I decided this is what I was going to use. So there you go. Sometimes you got to use up a lot of plastic to get your answer. That's just the way 3D printing works. It's not an exact science. We're not there yet. And that's why some people ask me, you know, which printer do I recommend? What is the best printer to buy? And there is no easy answer. The printers are getting better and better. I mean, the DaVincis that I used, they were good 2 years ago when I got them, and they were a great place to start. But you know, printing has advanced well beyond where those things are capable of. So I'm kind of using those less and less and using a printer like this more and more, and I'm looking at getting another printer. So I'm learning the same way you're learning, and that's what I'm trying to do here on this channel, is help you learn so you can make a more educated decision on how you print and what you buy and things like that. And as you can see, just the different slicers, just the different software can give you different results. And that, again, depends on what you're printing, what type of plastic you're using. It's really trial and error. So if you see someone that has this really terrific print and you go, oh man, I want to use their printer and I want to use their software so I can get those same results, odds are they probably printed 5, 6, maybe 10 of them before they got to that result. Now once you get more experience, you get a little faster at it. You know shortcuts. You don't have to print every one in 02 and 01 and try 4 different slicers. You kind of know where you're going. But that's what I wanted to show you, was there's a lot of different options, and sometimes you can pay for, you know, a high price slicer, and Simplify 3D has a lot of great features, but I just haven't been able to get great prints out of it consistently. I'm getting better prints out of Slicer and Cura, so I kind of stick with those, and everybody has their preferences. So this was just a good example of printing lots of pieces and learning from those pieces what you want to do. So rather than print a whole chess set and find out, oh man, it looks like crap, you know, I took the worst piece and I printed it different ways, and now I know what prints good. So now I'm more comfortable printing that whole chess piece or the whole chess set and probably get good results. Now, there may be a few surprises in there, but I'm pretty confident that now I can get this to print. And that's what it's all about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you learned a little something. I hope it helped you. So that's it for now. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you like my channel, please subscribe, and that tells me you want to see more of this. And that's all I got for now. I'll see you next time on Filament Friday.